Good afternoon and welcome. We are going to do a test session with Adobe Premiere Pro. Here with Tokoza in his newly built green screen studio. So the first things we do is we click onto Adobe Premiere and we wait for the program to start. When the program starts up, then we want to go and look for the folder where we're going to keep a new project. Remember to always have internet available to put in your password to set up the license. Then when Adobe Premiere opens up, we're going to go to new project. New project highlights up in the corner over here. So we're going to say new project. We already started one up. So I'm just going to go browse and actually open that one up. That was set up in recording for UNDP day 2 recordings. It should be here. Anyway, we're going to select the folder here. Oh, we're actually opening up a new project. So now we need to name the project. So we're going to name it Test Green King. And we're going to say OK. Then our default panel will open up, giving us our place where we can put all our clips in our bins. We usually want to grab this, highlight it, and put it up in the corner on the left hand side. And then it will give us all effect controls, effects, and essential graphics. Or we're going to push that all to the corner for now because we're not going to be utilizing that so much. Close my program and my source clips a little bit so we can have space. Now it says here import media to start, and that's what we need to do. And the easiest way to do that is we open up Explorer, and now this is where we imported from our SD card into our Explorer, into our hard drive. Now I'm going to go into footage. Now we recorded 2 cameras, so I'm going to grab these 2 cameras and drag them into my area to import. So all the clips will import. And suddenly we see there's a camera 1, camera 2, exactly labeled as we did in Explorer. At the same time, while we're here, we might as well bring in our audio. There's our audio. So, but I might as well just grab the bin called audio here. Just grab it in here and everything will be ready to start. Obviously there's some meta tag files and things that won't actually be recognized, and we'll just say okay, those file formats are not supported. So all good and well. Now we're going to start. Here's our timeline. This is where we start editing our footage. I'm going to go inside here. I'm going to have a look and see what we've got in camera 1. So I'm going to drag this a little bit open more. Usually we have to wait a little while until the thumbnails are actually drawn up. Now we remember from when we were shooting that the clip number 4 was one of the better ones. So I'm going to grab this one and I'm going to drag it into the timeline at the bottom, and then that's going to create a new sequence. So there it's created the sequence and it's automatically named it the same as the clip. Now what we want to do is this sequence over here, we want to right click and rename it because we don't want to keep that name of the actual clip because it's a little bit of a meaningless name, right? So we're going to go there, we're going to say rename, and we're going to call it Green Key Test. And when we press enter, then already over here we can see that the sequence has been called that as well. Right, so we've got our first clip from our first camera. Now we want to go to our second camera and grab the 4th clip as well. And now we're going to drag that. We're just going to be careful where we're dragging it so it doesn't actually overlap into our other clip, because then it's just going to delete the file where it's on top of it. So I'm trying to find space for it. You can see now that's clear space there. I'm holding the left button as long as I'm happy, and I'm dragging it up and down until I find a nice clear space. There, obviously there, that's not good space, that's not space. There I've got space, so I let go. So we've got the visual tracks on top and the audio tracks at the bottom. By double clicking these here, we can actually see much better. We can see the audio waveform all nicely drawn out and all nicely drawn out there. And there on top here, we've got our visual tracks. We can open up those up. Again, we can go to the little sidebar here, and then we can select if we want to see the continuous video thumbnails. Just wait a little while, and there they go, and all get drawn in. But that will actually delay us scrubbing a bit, unless you've got a very fast computer. I would suggest that you only use video head thumbnails only. So that'll make it a lot easier for the timeline, yeah, to scrub along. Now what we want to do is we want to synchronize these two clips at the time where we put our little hands up and we started the actual recording, and we clapped in order to synchronize the two clips. Now visually, and you can get used to this, you'll see that a little spike into the actual waveform. We can start actually reading. You can read this quite easily once you get used to it. There's the little clap. There's the little clap over there. And there's the other clap over here. Sometimes it's quite easy. You just bring it in sequencing. You just got to go plus, plus, plus on your timeline to make sure that you line it up 100%. There it is. That's like 100%. If you are struggling and you want to synchronize these automatically, then Adobe Premiere has got a great feature where you just highlight both those clips, and then you right click and it automatically synchronizes the clips for you by pressing synchronize. When you do that, you have the option to synchronize to channel 1 or channel 2. We're going to leave it at channel 1. I'm going to say OK. It goes through a processing sequence, and after a while then these two clap sounds should actually try and match up completely. There's also other little telltale signs of the waveform, the way it's thick and thin, thick and thin. Obviously the two recordings from the two cameras weren't exactly at the same level, but we can see that there is synchronized audio between the screens. See the waveforms are very, very similar. So if you also go and open up the timeline and go plus, 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 we see that the clapping sound is actually synchronized nicely. Now, so usually what you want to do is you want to click outside and then grab the first clip and then just go past the clapping sound. And we know that we've got synchronization. Now we're going to go to and just trim those clips out because we don't need that anymore. And we're going to be starting here from the beginning. So now we can just minimize these a little bit, give us a little bit more space here. So now what we want to do is we want to bring in our next audio, which is the real audio, the microphone, the lapel audio that we recorded from our Zoom recorder, because that's got the best audio in there. And then we're going to look for that, which is under audio. And we're going to pick the last take that we did. And we're just going to drop it into a timeline and then obviously place it right underneath everything else. We're just going to drop it in somewhere there anyway. And then we can just go plus, 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 and we can actually start seeing that there could be a little telltale sign. The way you want to actually test that is you want to mute the other two audio tracks. Then you only listen to that. There's a little clapping sound. I know a clapping sound was here a little bit here earlier. So I'm just going to drag that out again so we can just see visually where it is. So I can either drag it there and just line it up, or again, I can grab these three clips, right click and then synchronize. Synchronize to track 1 and let it do its thing. And then hopefully it will automatically line up. So I'm just going to highlight that clip and that clip. And then say synchronize. Audio track 1. Match could not be found. It's quite possible that this is not the right clip, or it's possible that the system is actually struggling to actually find them and pick them up. I picked up two clips together at the same time. I'm just going to do that. Just going to double check this. This is obviously artificial intelligence is doing all of this. And sometimes artificial intelligence may not always get it right. It doesn't look like it's the right clip. So we obviously picked up the wrong clip. Sometimes you can be sure, yeah, that was the one, but it's not. I want to pick up that clip, see if there's anything in here. You see, sometimes it can be deceiving because you've got the length of the clip could have been an indicator, but sometimes the audio could be running much longer than we had on the cameras. On the cameras we could have stopped, and then obviously we didn't. So I'm going to try and sync these two here, see if this is going to work. Doesn't look like it's this clip either. So this is quite strange now as to which clip we used. Oh no, there's another clip. Is there? 219, 830, 213. So I'm going to delete that and bring that clip in here. See, there's audio there. Obviously, it's always better to have your clips numbered correctly. Yeah, this time it found it. Okay, so obviously the track numbers weren't in order, and that kind of fooled us. So now we play back just to make sure that we're all on.
Especially at night.
Okay, so now what we do is we mute our two tracks and listen to a clean audio and see if we're having lip sync. So I can quickly just drag, and you can already see the mouth is actually moving in time. But you want to be sure. You want to be sure. Always do a test. Always play back and test. So we'll play back here. There we can see that the clapping sound is in sync. I'm going to drag a little bit to see when the lady is speaking for us.
Especially at night.
See the lips going. So sounds good to me. That's in sync. All right. So audio and everything else is correct. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back here now where we said we're going to trim away the portions that we were getting ready. In fact, that's where our audio starts. So I'm going to trim everything to there.
So let's unel als Ellen.
Okay, so you can actually see that that's where the answer actually really starts. So I'm going to trim that away, trim that away, and trim that away, and that's where we begin. Now what I can do is I can right click and ripple delete all the clips, and then everything will start from the beginning of our actual timeline. Give us nice clean audio there, nice clean in and out points. So that's where we want to stop. Immediately this actually indicates how long the clip is. If we just highlight on top of it, you can see that it gives you a start and an ending, and the duration it's 1 minute 49 seconds and 4 frames. All right, good. So now we've got everything lined up. We're happy. Now we want to start keying our footage. So first thing we do, try and make space for it. So we'll close the audio, give us a little bit more real estate to work with. Close the audio, close the audio, close that audio, and then what we do, that between the two lines here that divides our visual and our audio, top and bottom, I'm just going to drag this down to the bottom here so it can give us more space for our visual. Now we're going to bring in a clip underneath this one and a clip underneath this one, which is going to be a background that we're going to key out. So we need a little bit more space. So we've got 2 free channels here now to bring in our backgrounds. Right, so now what we do, we always want to be nice and neat. So we want to be able to go here and open up a little bit of space so we can create a new bin, and we're going to call it backgrounds. And in the backgrounds here now we're going to drag in some of our possible nice backgrounds that we want to use. We'll try some of them now. So we go, here's a folder with my backgrounds. I've got some from Adobe, which we've downloaded. I've got some others. We've got gym, we've got library, we've got lounge. So the lady's talking about her career path and her life moments during her working environments. So maybe like a lounge scene or maybe like an office scene would be nice. So let's go and have a look at some offices. And what you want to do here now is go view and go extra large so it can give us a little bit better view. So I'm trying to match her personality to the type of environment she might be in. I'm looking at the lighting, I'm looking at the color schemes. So we found one here that could be nice. So I'm going to drag that into, oh, there we go. So I'm going to drag that into my bin. Right, just double click that, see it nice and big. Okay, we've got a nice big empty wall here, which may not, yeah, we can put a logo there and that may work. Got a nice big space here in the background. So that could work, but just for luck, maybe we want to bring in a couple of others, just in case we want to try a couple more in the same family of styles. I kind of like these ones there, where you've got the wall, you can actually play around and do that. So we've got some ideas here. Now, to start with, we probably want to go and look at the wide first. So what we've got here, we've got the close-up on top and the wide at the bottom. Again, these little eyes will actually switch on and off our tracks so we can see below. And there's our wide shot. We can see now already we've got a lot of little shadows and creases on our green screen over here on the side, which we'll probably want to create a little mask. But so what I'm going to do, I'm going to do that first actually. I'm going to go to my effect controls and I'm going to try and make this as big as I can so I can see what I'm doing here. So I want to get this as big as I can. Then I'm going to go back to my effect controls, click onto the clip that I want. Then I'm going to pick up this little mask. There's a range of masks. You can have a circular mask and the opacity create an ellipse mask or a circular mask, or a 4-point polygon or a squarish mask. For now, this will do for me. So what happens is it immediately just gives me the 4 points and the turning point if I want to turn the mask. So if I just highlight on top of it here, you can see that you can either drag it by the hand, put it where we want to. So we want to select the area that is not, it's going to clear away any creases. Now, I noticed during the shoot that the lady didn't quite move too much, which was actually quite good. And we want to contain the green screen to its minimum. If we allow all of this to be part of our screen, then what it does is it extends our range of different green hues, and then that makes it a lot more difficult to key out. So I'm going to keep this to a minimum, and then I'm going to quickly drag all the way across just to see that she didn't move her hands or anything outside of that green space. So that seems okay. Now I've got a little bit of a scene over here. It's got quite light over there. So I'm going to decrease my screen to 25%. And I'm going to create another little point here. And then I'm going to drag that away. I'm going to cut that away there because I want the best of the best green left over for me to be able to work with. I can dent this thing in there as well. So this is what is called a mask. It gives me the best possible range of the cleanest range that we've got. I'm just going to be careful here. Okay, so that kind of minimizes the all the creases and everything else that we don't want to include in our screen. We go back to fit. Fit obviously conforms to the size of your screen here. So now that we've done that, now we want to go to our famous Ultra key. So you go to Effects, you put in Ultra there, Ultra, and then you drag the Ultra key into the clip. And once it's there, we're going to go into Effect Controls. Now we're going to have to see how we're going to play around with this. So this also has everything that you put in here, all the effects have got a key, masks as well. So the opacity was the first key we had. I mean, mask that we included, and that's under opacity over here. But now, you see under opacity, we have a mask. And that's the mask that we used before. We just click on it and you can see it highlighted. So I'm just going to click away from it at the bottom here, and then it actually removes my little drawn out little mask. If you go under the Ultra key now, the Ultra key has also got areas for masking, but we'll get into that just now. So what we want to do now is we want to pick up probably not the very, very darkest, but close to 80% of the darkest area that we have. I'm kind of looking here that the bottom here seems to be a little darker than usual. So I want to go more towards there and see how that works. Right, so that keys out quite a bit of it, except now obviously we want to go from compose to alpha to see the reverse. And we want to make sure that all of this is black. So the first thing we want to do is work from top to bottom. And the first little thing that I want to do, the transparency will work for us, but it's not something we want to fiddle with at the moment. I want to get rid of the highlight to see if that takes away most of the little highlight spots. Now, we want to clean up all of this here because this is not going to look good when we do a playback. So even if I take this back to my composite, what you need to always do, go to 200% and go inside those areas there. And when you play it back, and this is, you will only notice this when you finally rendered it out and you're just about to put it to YouTube, and then you see these little funny, little fluttering corners. See there, these over there, see over there. So I'm just going to go to this side of the screen over here. You see, so it's always little patterns and things that we have in our clothes and our chairs can always interfere with these things. You see there, it's not keyed out properly. So I'm going to go back to my alpha channel and have a look and see what we can do here. Go to alpha channel. There we can see that area there is not really great. So ideally now we want to decrease this, but don't go below 30. See now, because now the more we key this out, the more it starts to bring in other things. So I want to take it to about 30, 31, somewhere in between there, not greater than that. Now we still have a bit of an issue there, and we still have an issue over here. So that is obviously our shadows. So we want to go to our shadows and pick up the shadows a bit, and then until we clear that out. Then obviously you want to do a check all around the mask and just have a look and see. So obviously now this has come back to life here because we've increased the transparency. So what we want to do now, we've played around with the highlight, we've played around with the shadow. We want to go down to the pedestal because that determines the difference between shadow and highlight, and it'll actually start attacking that away from us. You see already there, I can start cleaning it up, so we'll have a nice clean. But now the problem is, the more the pedestal, the more you're going to key away the fine little hair that you have on. In this case here, it's not too critical. So about 38%, it's about middle of the road. So I would call this a middle of the road key. Go back to my composite. And it's looking reasonably good. Just drop in a quick background just to see what we're looking at. I'm going to put it over there because that's the live clip. This one is off. Remember that eye is off. Okay, so now we're starting to look and see what's going on. Let me decrease the size of my background, make it more natural there. So take it more there. Yeah, it's kind of working. make it a little bit smaller. Yeah, let's give it a little bit of a floor. Remember, we need to get it from corner to corner. So that's a little bit of a problem there now. Just going to increase that so we have a full screen. Around about there. That should be more or less right. Okay. This has got a little bit of noise here still. I'm wondering where that's coming from. Because a mask should not even be affecting it. Okay, so we'll have a look and see what's going on here now. Make this as big as possible. Okay, so now we'll just play a little bit and see how it
in
works.
terms of after maybe dilonyana tsa o tshwana le counseling or go make sure gore o sharp to go back to work.
Hayi, ka gore ne ke bereka di-therapy bazange ba tlisa ko di
Okay, so it looks like our keying is not 100%. So we're going to go back and check and see what's going on here. So obviously, when you want to actually double check everything, you want to go back to your alpha channel. And now you want to go to 200, 400%. We're going to go to 200% and have a look and see some of our ages, because it's always something that we could have maybe have left out. So this is the thing with some of the lighting that we have on our key on the screen. So it's a little bit out here, so I'm going to just increase my pedestal up a little bit just to make sure that that edge is clean. See, my pedestal is at 38%. I'm just going to push that up a little bit. Make sure that it's clean, clean, clean. Don't want to go too much because then we're going to be going to our head. Now, what we could have done, because I'm going to start over, I'm going to try the easy way. If this works, then you don't have to do too much fiddling. But at least now there's a little bit of understanding how these players have got what kind of a role do they play in Astral into a king. So I'm going to start over again totally. So I'm going to key up the king, I'm going to go there. I'm going to pick up a green somewhere in the middle. Before I do that, I need to make sure that I'm on a fit. Okay, so just clear that out again. I'm going to start again. I'm going to go a little bit higher in the middle of the two, dark and light. It's always a trial and error sometimes. It's not an exact science, this. So we try the aggressive filter first and see if that works for us. And usually, I would say about 60% of the time, you probably, all these settings actually gives you the best possible key you can have. If you're about in the middle of the two. So it's an alpha key here. I've still got a little bit of cleaning up to do though, unfortunately. So I'm going to bring in my highlight all the way down, bring up my shadow up a bit. You see, you don't want to go too much because now it flares at the bottom. See, this is why you need to have a completely clean green key. Because you can pull the one, pull the other, and then it's never happy medium all the way around. So I'm going to push that up a little bit. And I'm probably going to drop my transparency down. So that gives me a little bit of a cleaner white inside. It looks okay, but you never know for sure. So that's another method to try. Usually if you've got a very good green lit screen, then all you got to do is go to your custom and then go to the aggressive, and that should give you one of the best keys. Seems like Premiere's holding me back a little bit now. Remember, all this is hard processing, so it actually starts to drop a lot of power on your computer. So we're back to composite. We just want to play a little bit and see how our effect is.
Because of already negative problems. So no ka se ba bona le bona ba tshotse ba nagana gore motho o hijackile wa bona ba tshwanetse ba tsebe ba ra ba
I
zama
can't see on the big screen, but obviously the bigger screen
What was the
is
reason
showing something
for
that I'm not
hijacking?
quite visibly seeing.
Maybe
There's
you
something
can
there
check
possibly at the bottom. Oh yeah, no, don't worry about that. That's because when we're on a quarter playback resolution, there will be a slight little thing there at the bottom that will actually show. But when you go to full resolution, that will go away. So I'm just going to go to full here, and it takes a little bit of time to play, and it'll stutter. But now you see it doesn't do that anymore. Okay, so don't worry too much about that. You want to go to quarter because once you put in effects like Ultra Key and you put in masks, you put in whatever else you're putting on, the more you put on, the more it's going to slow down your computer. And in order to have a better scrubbing functionality, you want to go to a quarter. Just waiting for the computer to catch up now. This is why it's important that you have a good graphics card and good ventilation. Otherwise, your computer will start lagging. All right, so I'm going to go back to a quarter here once the computer allows me to. All right, and now we're able to scrub along. So, little touch-ups I'm still going to do here. I'm going to go back to my effect controls. I'm going to go back to my motion. I want to put the lady a little bit further into the screen over here. Just gives me a little bit of a better view. Right there, it's great. Okay, now the next thing we want to do is we want to give it a little bit more space because I want to bring in another channel, another layer underneath that. And now, obviously, the channel's changed here, so I'm going to hide that one there and come back to my top. I want to put in the logo here on the end. But we can also just always double check and double check and double check. Let's push to 200% to see if it's getting hot here. Okay, so I'm going to look at my edges. Right, we want to look at see how fine the edges are and what possibly else we can do, because there's another section underneath the Ultra Key, which is the cleanup. Okay, which is matte cleanup. So we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to look at how the edges of the screen look like here. And sometimes you want to go to 200%, sometimes you want to go to 400%. So I'm going to go to 400%. So we can just go to a little bit further edge. Just have a look and see on our edges. We want to have a look at our facial features. And see what the edges are looking like. In this case, it's the chair. It's going to go back down to 200%. What I'm going to try and do, once we've decided on where we want the JPEG, because now the bigger the JPEG underneath here it is, the more the computer will struggle to manage a big file. So usually what you want to do there is a trick here where we extend this out and we want to take a little capture of this clip over here. So it's going to go back to fit, and that's the screen that we want. We were happy with that. I want to take a little capture here, and then we're going to save that clip. We're going to save it into where our project is. I'm going to put this into the folder where everything else belongs. It's under UNDP. It's under there for recording. I'm going to select the folder and I'm going to create a PNG. Usually what that happens, it actually appears into the main project, and there it is over there. So I'm going to replace that with this, which is exactly the same, but it's a lot lighter because we've actually made, I'll go back to my effects and into my green key. Right, so now we are going to look and see on our composite alpha channel. Okay, so we're going to continue here. We're going to check on our next item down the list on our Ultra key, which is the cleanup key. And we're going to go here, which says matte cleanup. And we're going to look at the choke, the softening, the contrast, and the mid post. So in order to check all of those, we're just going to go to 200%. And we're going to zoom in to the edge of our screen to have a look and see on our edges over here. See how best we can clean that up. I can even actually go up to 400% just to give me a little bit of a much clearer view. So I'm just going to go right to the top there. Have a look and see on my edge. So this is where you refine that edge. So we don't want it too soft, and we don't want it to look too kind of having too many artifacts. So if we look at the setting over here, the minute we actually start doing that, it goes into 0.25%. So we want it to be crisp, but not so crisp. So I would go, it was about 9 or 10 over there. So I want to make it a little bit sharper. So I want to use my contrast up a little bit. So make it a bit more sharper there, like that. So that kind of gives it a lot better definition. And then my midpoint going inwards or outwards, yeah, it can be adjusted as well, but that just defines the contrast setting. So we're going to leave that as it is, like that. The next thing we want to do is called spill suppression. Now, if you've got a very high, if your green screen is lit very, very strongly, what's going to happen is you're going to start picking up a lot of green spillage that comes onto the back of the clothes. So in this case, we kept the light fairly low. It was good enough to key, and it didn't have so much spillage. But sometimes you'll see the spillage coming into the clothes over here. So this is where we actually start playing around with that. So you can see there's a little green cast. So we want to push our range usually to about 59, 60, not more than that. So I'm just going to keep it down to 58. It takes away that a little bit, and then I spill up to 58 as well. Between 58 and 60, sometimes 59. So that's the best we want to do that. Okay, so that looks nice and clean all the way around. I'm happy with that. So then I go back to my viewing port here and select fit. Go back to fit, and there's a screen. Now we want to create a little UNDP logo on our screen over here. Now the way we're going to do that, firstly, so we're going to go down to Google. I'm going to search for UNDP logo. Usually Wikipedia has got the right kind of clean images. So this is an SVG, which is a vector, which is great. We're going to save it into our folder. Go to Astral Shoots, Green Screen Course, and go down to UNDP, and it's there for recording, and we're going to put it in there. Actually, it's a PNG. It used to be a SVG and somebody named it PNG, but nevertheless, it looks clean enough for us to use. So we've made a little bit of space now between our settings over here. So we're just going to bring that image in here, and then we're going to carefully position it in place. So we go to our folder where we saved it. There for recording, it's UNDP logo. We drag that in to our sourcing bins, our media browser bin, and as soon as it's there, we want to drag it down between those two layers, and then obviously we want to stretch it for the duration of our clip. Now, obviously, we can see it's quite large. So what we want to do is we want to click on it. Then we're going to go to our motion settings. We're going to make it a little bit smaller. A little bit smaller, a little bit smaller. So something like that. Then we're going to position it as if it's part of our background over here. And then carefully position it so it looks like it's a poster on the wall. It looks really nice there. So I'm happy with that. And there's our final clip. Now what we want to do is obviously we want to go back to our lady over here and we want to do some final touch-ups. So we're going to go back to effects and then select lumetri. Don't worry about those. There's a lumetri color. Drop that in there. This is when we're going to do some final little grading. Okay, so we see that the facial features are a little bit on the dark side, so we want to enhance that a little bit. So what we want to do is select obviously the lumetri key there. We want to do a basic correction and we want to look at the exposure. Maybe the exposure was a little bit down. I wouldn't touch that too much, just slightly, maybe 0.4. Already we can see that we can start seeing a bit better. However, you can go to the shadows because that's where the dark tones are, and we want to pick up the shadows a bit. And that starts to brighten up our face a little bit. It's starting to look better. You don't want to go too much. The more you bring up your shadows, the more you're going to have to bring up your saturation or your color. So we want to go to our saturation here now, and then just pick up the color a bit again. So that starts to give it a little bit of a nice tone to our skin tones. And then we want to go to our curves. Final thing is what is called the famous S curve. So we want to go about a third of the way down and pick up brightness here a little bit. You don't want to go too bright. That's way too bright. You can see the whites actually start blooming and you see no definition. So you just got to be very careful that you don't take away any of the definition of the white area. So that kind of brings the brightness up a little bit, and that's going to bring the darker tones down a bit. So this is what the S curve does. So we don't want to go too far down here, but kind of when it settles down, it hopefully should be much cleaner. Have a lot more contrast on our image. Be careful you don't go too far down here. There. Okay, so that's great. So that's it. And then what we'll do is we'll export the clip by pressing Control M. Control M is for the old term of making a movie. And then we'll come up to our rendering settings here. I'm going to choose 8264, which is made for the whole lot of settings are already made for YouTube and for Vimeo, so we can select all of these accordingly. So the best one will probably be, we've got a range of other settings here, but there's match source high bitrate is one of the best ones to use for most applications. So what we're going to do is we're going to select that, and we're going to say queue or export. When you queue, it opens up another little application which is called Media Coder, and it'll actually start creating it there. So let's go to queue. So another little application will open up now. It allows us to export the clip between the two lines that we've designated the clip that we want to export. But just for now, just so we can just see that we're going to export this. Now we want to find where we want. Okay. Now in the coder, we're going to choose where we want to actually save the clip. it was in here. So we're going to go there, down here, and then it's there for recording, and I'm going to right click, create a new bin, and call it exports. I'm going to call it exports, and we're going to go in here and call it green tree test. It says save, and then I'm going to press on the little green go button here. Right, and then what's going to open up? It's going to open up a little preview window at the bottom. It's going to show us that it's actually happening. So this needs to reach all the way to the end here, and then we know that the clip is actually finalized, and that'll be ready to go to YouTube.